I'm Jody Collada with Wellspring Solutions. Thanks so much for joining us. We are here at the Center for Holistic Healing in High Point. We are partnering with them and specifically with certified yoga teacher Ericka Thomas to bring you yoga demonstration classes as part of our Thrive initiative. We hope you enjoy this time for refreshment, to relax, and to really just devote some time to your self-care. If you would like more opportunities to thrive, please check us out on our website.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Ericka, and in today's Thrive yoga practice, we are going to come down to the floor with our yoga mat. Today, you'll get to practice connecting with the breath and nourishing yourself, mind, body, and spirit with a simple flow. Give yourself a moment, lay out your mat, and I'll meet you on the floor. As you make your way down to the mat, give yourself any props for comfort and support that you might need. So an extra blanket under your head, maybe an extra blanket under your mat for comfort. And in our series today, we're going to use an extra rolled up mat as a prop. A little later on, you could use your mat rolled up, you could use an extra blanket rolled up, you could use an actual yoga block. Whatever you have on hand is fantastic. Remember, this is your practice and you have permission to shift, move, change, or make any different choices that you need to find comfort in the moment. So have a seat on your mat, and then we're going to hold behind our knees here to help ourselves down. We can walk the feet back and then use that connection behind the knees to find a comfortable position on the floor. So relaxing those shoulders down along the sides of the body here, let's turn the palms up towards the ceiling. And taking care of our back today, let's just find constructive rest with the knees bent, feet flat on the floor. And those knees can be neutral, or you might choose to drop them in against each other for just these first few moments of our practice. Connecting with that breath. Notice how deep that breath goes in with each inhale. Perhaps placing one hand on your belly to feel that rise and fall. Feeling, breathing, listening to the body. Allowing yourself to stay present today without judgment, competition, or expectation. Noticing how long it takes to exhale that breath. Let's begin to listen for a soft whisper at the back of the throat on the exhale. Letting that breath be our guide today. On our next inhale, we can take those hands back, opening the elbows. Feeling that openness through the shoulders. Noticing what we notice there. Connecting with our breath. On our next exhale, let's draw those arms down along the side of the body. Inhaling as we take those arms back, finding a beautiful open flow through our own just right range of motion. Exhaling as the arms come down. Inhaling as they open back. Checking in with those shoulders. Inviting some softness in through the neck and the chest, the face and the jaw. We can continue with this simple shoulder flow, or we may choose to reach those hands forward and lift the upper body, engaging the abdominals, inhaling as we come back, resting into the mat, exhaling as we lift, reaching forward through the fingertips, inhaling as we open those arms back. One movement, one breath. We can continue with this simple yoga crunch, or we have the option to add a layer of challenge here as we exhale, drawing both knees into the chest, reaching for our heels. Inhaling as we let the toes tap the floor and reach back. Exhaling, reaching forward. Inhaling, opening the body. Exhaling, contracting. Finding that deep well of strength right through the center of the core. We might continue here. Or we have the option as we inhale to place the feet into the mat and lift the hips into a bridge. Exhaling as we let the hips come down, drawing the arms down and the knees into the chest. Inhaling as we open, lifting into that bridge. Exhaling, coming into this crunch. Inhaling, opening the body, finding what feels right for us in the moment. On our next inhale, finding ourselves in a shoulder bridge, lifting those hips. Let's let those arms float down along the side of the body, walking the shoulders down away from the ears, placing both feet flat into the floor, feeling all four corners of those feet grounded as we lift up through the center of the body. Finding our breath here. We have the option to continue to hold our bridge as it is, or we might choose to bend the elbows, sending the fingertips up towards the ceiling, pressing those elbows and the upper arms into the mat as we contract through the upper back as well. Again, finding that deep well of strength. On our next exhale, gently releasing the hips down to the floor. Let's begin to march the knees, exhaling as we bring one knee into the chest. We can hold around the shin or perhaps behind the knee. Inhaling as we release that foot to the floor. Exhaling as we draw the other knee in. Checking in with the hips, the low back, the legs. Connecting our movement to the breath in whatever way feels right for us in the moment. We can continue with this gentle march, or we might expand the movement a little bit. So as we exhale and draw one knee in, we can extend the opposite leg, resting along the mat. Inhaling as we bring both knees back center, and then exhale as we change sides. One knee stays in, the opposite leg extends. Inhaling and exhaling. There's no rush. Let that breath be your guide. Finding that connection. We can stay with this movement, or we have the option on our next exhale to take one knee across the body, perhaps taking an extra breath here in this gentle rotation before inhaling back center to switch sides. So we'll bring both knees back center, extend the other leg, and exhale across. Your range of motion is completely up to you. Inhaling as we come center. Exhaling as we change. Changing sides. Opening into that rotation. Notice the shoulder blades here. Let's see if we can keep both shoulders pressed into the mat as we let the knee come across the body. Let the shoulders show you how big of a range of motion to find today. Let's do one more rotation each side. Finding some gentleness. Last time, as we come across center. Inhaling, coming back as we bring both feet in. For just a moment, walking those shoulders down away from your ears. Just checking in with the spine for a bit. So coming back into constructive rest here as we move into a psoas release series. So we're going to take our extra rolled up mat and slide that mat underneath the hips. So lifting our hips just like we had them in our shoulder bridge, and we're placing that prop very low on the hips. So avoid your natural curve to your spine and slide the prop, whether that's a blanket or a mat or a block, low on the hips. So right behind where your tailbone is or the sacrum. So finding some support here. And notice how that height opens the hip flexors just a little bit. For some people, this can be a very intense sensation, even simply resting in this supported bridge. Some people, they like a little bit more height. So you can experiment with your props in this support, but in many cases, less is more. So resist the temptation to force your hips really high into a supported bridge with the high end of your block or extra props here. And then once we have our support under the bridge, we're just going to relax the shoulders a little bit. You can rest your hands on that extended mat if you like, or take the arms out to the side, whatever feels right for you in the moment. And we'll return to the breath. From here, extending one leg to rest on the mat. So we're resting our heel down. That leg is completely relaxed and passive. And we can bring our awareness to the front of that hip of our extended leg. So that is the hip flexor, the psoas muscle. And that muscle connects to our femur and runs through the body and back to the spine from T12 to L5 along the vertebrae. That psoas muscle is sometimes called our stress muscle. And it has a tendency to hold on to a lot of tension for many different reasons, not the least of which is our chronic exposure to stress. And so allowing the body to let go of that tension in a safe, supported way is one way we can tap into our own inner resilience. We can stay passive in this release, or we have the option to extend some energy down this leg, draw the toe back, and then gently lift the heel away from the mat an inch or two and then back down. We can breathe as we feel it makes sense for us. And we just lift and lower that heel, a really small range of motion. Lifting from the hip with the knee straight. Finding the connection all the way to the bottom of the foot. We might continue here, or with our foot hovering away from the mat, we'll turn that foot to the outside and draw the heel into the hip so the knee opens slightly. And then we'll extend that leg all the way out, pushing through the bottom of the foot. Again, connecting to our breath here. There's no right or wrong way, but we do want to find some mindful awareness with that breath and movement, some intention and attention to what we are doing in the moment. Let's do one more here. Draw the heel in, press out to extend, and then we'll release that foot down to the mat. From here, we can pause in our supported bridge before changing sides. When you're ready, extending the other leg, resting that heel against the floor, sinking into the support under your low back, perhaps bringing your attention here to your breath, returning to that soft whisper at the back of the throat on the exhale. Breathing some space between your shoulders and your ears. Allowing the body to sink into that support. We can again keep our focus and awareness on the hip flexor, the psoas muscle, on this second side. Resting here or sending energy down this extended leg all the way to the bottom of the foot, pulling the toes back, keeping that knee straight as we lift and lower the heel an inch or two away from the mat. Really small range of motion here for the psoas. Lifting and lowering. Let yourself notice how that hip feels here. And rather than counting repetitions, see if you can find some evenness between the first side and the second side of the body. When you're ready, you might choose to continue, or with the heel away from the floor, turn the foot to the outside and draw that heel into the hip, letting the knee fall out slightly, pressing out through the bottom of the foot, fully extending the knee, drawing the heel in. Again, noticing what you notice about this side of the body. Let's do one more here. And then when you're ready, letting that foot come down to the mat. Returning center into our supported bridge. Let's take one more breath here. And then when you're ready, gently lifting the hips away from that prop to slide it out and away from the body. Gently sinking the hips down into the floor. Give yourself a moment here just to rest into the support of the mat, coming off of that supported bridge. And then we might choose to rock the knees left and right here, going really slow as we check back in. As we check back in with those hips and the lower body. Returning center and drawing both knees up into the chest. So we can wrap up around our shins if that's comfortable, or take the hands behind the knees. Give yourself a great big hug here, rocking that back out a little bit left and right. Returning center, let the feet come down to the floor, and from here, we'll move to a position against the wall for one final restorative pose called legs up the wall. But before we get there, we want to carefully and safely come up to a seated position. So from here, we'll roll to one side of the body, taking both knees to one side. We can rest our head on our lower arm for a moment, and then pressing into the floor with our top hand, help ourselves back up to a center seated position, and then we'll move our mat against the wall for legs up the wall. So set your mat up perpendicular to a wall. If you don't have a wall, we can still do this pose. We just place ourselves against the side of a couch or the side of a chair, and rather than having the legs straight, they would be bent over the seat of the chair. So don't worry if you don't have a lot of wall space in your place, it still works. In order to get into this pose, we're gonna sit next to our mat first of all. So I'm off the mat, but right next to the mat. And then in order to get into this position, I'm gonna turn myself, I'm gonna kind of tip over towards where my mat is. So I need to sit really, really close to the edge of that mat with my back and my hips already pressed up against the wall. From here, I'm gonna turn towards my mat, kind of curl the legs in, and then roll so that both legs extend straight up. Now this places my hips really close to the wall. Sometimes you kind of have to scoot yourself a little bit closer. We just allow those legs to extend neutral up from our hip bones. So we don't have to have the feet straight together. We don't need to have them very wide apart, although those are other options in this pose if you'd like to experiment with them. But we do want it to be comfortable. If you are feeling any added strain or pain through the low back, or if you feel like your hips just won't come down to the floor, that's when we would grab onto our extra prop, either the rolled up blanket or the rolled up extra mat, or maybe a block here, whatever you have at hand, and then slide that underneath the low back. That's gonna take a lot of the pressure off of the hamstrings and allow you to relax into the body. And don't be afraid to add extra height if you need to, because it's all about sinking into the support of your props. And then from here, we just relax those arms along the side of the body. Now, the arms can be wherever you like them to be. So out to the side, some people like to place their hands on their stomach. Some people like to take the hands overhead. This is a restorative pose, which means you have permission to hold it for a long time and just let gravity do the circulation for you. And so because of that, we want to give ourselves lots of options to be comfortable with an extra blanket under the head or pillow, maybe even a blanket over the body when we do restorative poses. Anything and everything that brings you comfort is an option for you here. And then once we've found our comfortable legs up the wall position, we'll just let ourselves sink back into the body, sink back into the breath, and let nature do its thing here. Finding that inhale. And just allowing yourself to sink back into whatever your natural breath is. Letting go of any remaining effort in the mind and the body. Softening through the face, the eyes, the forehead. Feeling that tension melt away with each and every breath. Legs up the wall is a beautiful pose to use at the end of the day to help calm the nervous system and prepare for a beautiful night's sleep. And when you're ready to come out of this restorative pose, we move very slowly here. First, wiggling the fingers and toes, removing any props that you might be using in this pose. We can walk the feet down the wall, bringing our knees into the chest, and then we'll just reverse the process to come back up to a seated position. Rolling to one side of the body first. We can pause here, taking 1, 2, or 3 breaths before we press into the floor to help ourselves back up to a comfortable center-seated position, whatever that looks like for you. Drawing hands to heart center. Sharing 3 more breaths, 1 for the mind, 1 for the body, and 1 for the spirit. And as always, may the light in me honor the light in you. Namaste. Thank you for joining me in our mat yoga class today, and I will see you in our next video.
Thank you so much again for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed these yoga exercises and that you devoted some time to your self-care. This class is part of a series, so please check back on our website for more opportunities for yoga and to thrive. Thanks so much again for joining us, and thank you to the Center for Holistic Healing.